Hey, welcome back to In the Pocket. I'm Jelami Sager. I want to thank you for joining me today. I've been musing about self versus selfishness. What does that mean exactly? Now, look, that idea is not new, it's not news. Especially as women, we have been told if you're into self healing and if you're into self help books and all that kind of self improvement, yada yada. You heard a lot about how we have to take care of ourselves, right? It's old news, and it's important. It is important for our health, our state of mind, and all that, and also too because when we take care of ourselves, we take care of others. But today, I wanted to share with you something that guidance had told me about this issue, about the self and what it means when we do take care of ourselves in a spiritual way, which is taking care of our mind, body, and spirit. And it's really something that they are constantly reminding clients of mine. And actually, this came up this week with a client, which is why I thought to talk to you about it. And also reminding me that when we spend time taking care of others, or even the world, feeling like we have to be out there marching and doing all these things for other people or humanity, that is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, it's a great thing. But if we're doing that a lot, you notice, and it takes us like it's a lot, and the balance of taking care of ourselves isn't there, according to guidance, we actually are truly missing the mark about our lives. In other words, we're only living half a life. That's how they put it. We're living half a life if we take care of others and don't give ourselves equal time. And I'm sure that that makes sense in some ways. And the way I like to think about it, it's like a quarter, right? We need the heads and the tails, or it's not a quarter. And it's an equal amount, the tail and the heads together in equal amounts. And that's all I'm trying to say. Just a reminder that doing too much for others and forsaking ourselves, according to guidance, is living half a life. And on the other extreme, same thing. If we spend a lot of time on ourselves and not doing for others, we're only living half a life. And I'm going to say this about doing for ourselves. Many of us have found ourselves, especially if you're a spiritual seeker, you have found yourself at times where you really need a lot of alone time. And I'm talking a lot of alone time. I spent a few years doing only for me. I really had no energy to do for others. I spent my weekends pretty much alone. I was living alone at that time. I went to work, I came home, and it got to the point where I did start to feel a little guilty about that. I started to wonder, when am I going to get out in the world? When am I going to volunteer again for organizations? When am I really going to do for others? I did feel very selfish. I was spending an amazing amount of time by myself, but during that period, I was actually healing many things. I wasn't just watching Netflix all day, although that probably would have been okay. But I spent time healing things that needed to be healed about myself in relation to others, in relationship to myself, issues that I had had that were troubling, like my anger, for instance. So I spent time dealing with myself in a very profound soul way. And what was interesting was, although I fretted about the time that I was spending alone, because it was a few years, it was a long time, and like I said, I felt guilty that I was spending that I was out of balance. But eventually, very organically, I left my home. It happened. It was like something clicked, and I got back out into the world again, and have not needed that time ever again. Not to say I don't work on myself, but that intensive 2 years of being that tarot card, the Hermit, for so long. And it actually proved to be some of the best time that I'd ever used. And like I said, organically, I did get out in the world again. It took no amount of effort to get back into the world, to help friends, to volunteer, to do things for my community. So it was an organic process. And I realize now, looking back, that that time, instead of fretting or feeling guilty, I should have trusted more. about what would happen, what would transpire from that. And that is also, so what I'm also saying to you by giving you that example is that this quarter, this heads tail thing, it's not necessarily in equal measure or time at the time, right? I spent a few years being very, very sequestered, almost like a hermit, by myself. But I came out in the world, and since then, it's almost like, wow, now I feel like I do have balance. I spend time with me, I spend time with others, I do for myself, I do for others. So those 2 years, in a way, was a balance point in taking care of myself because I had spent so much time, more than 2 years, always thinking about others first. So there was balance there too, right? And I wasn't as conscious about it back then, but that's when I started to learn about this from guidance, when they started to tell me that this equilibrium, this way of checking in with self, of realizing that being with self is not selfish, it's important. And if you end up in a time where you feel like a hermit, maybe do what I didn't do and trust just the timing and trust what you need. Because organically, that balance, you will come back into balance. I believe that from my own experience. And so it's just another idea about why it's important to take care of ourselves. And remember too, when we take care of ourselves, we do better for the world, and we do better for those that we love and for humanity as a whole. We have to trust that. We have to trust that it all is a complete circle, or like the quarter, the heads and the tails, and it's working in unison, right? So I hope that makes sense. I hope that I'm explaining it well so that you understand, but I would love your feedback, your comments about it. If you didn't understand what I said, let me know. Maybe I can explain it in a better way. If you agree, let me know. If you've had this experience, let me know. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. And let me just remind you all, I will be this Monday on Facebook live from 2:30 to 3:30 Pacific Standard Time, answering your questions, either personal or on worldly issues. And then next week on Thursday, I'll be on YouTube live from 11:30 to 12:30 Pacific Standard Time, also there to answer your questions using tarot guidance. All right. Blessings. Thanks for listening. Take good care.